Brandon, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am super excited to be here, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit about yourself, your family, and your business. What do you do?
Yeah, so that's a lot of different things, first of all. But let's break this down. I am here because we met because we are both believers in Christ. Nothing else needs to be said about me. That's the most important thing. And we're also from the same city, which is really cool. Love
Yeah.
always connecting with locals and other believers. So thank you again for having me. As far as my family, I have a wife, I have three kids. They're crazy monkeys and they're very loud. So I have a soundproof podcast studio to take meetings in. But I love them. They're fantastic. We just moved to this area a little over a year ago, so we're still exploring. We're loving this area, moving down here to Raleigh. And my business is virtual. So I have the luxury of operating anywhere I want in the world, although with three little kids, as you know, you have little kids, and for the listener, if
Mhm.
you have kids, it's kind of hard to travel with three little kids. So we really
Yeah.
don't go anywhere. But no, we operate a virtual consulting company and we help 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs just get out of their business and build an operation that doesn't need them. That process ideally starts way earlier in your business journey, but that's where we find most people get stuck is they build this business that operates with them at the center and they look up one day and they're like, wow, I can't leave this thing. So we need to get them out of the business and give them that freedom back that they really started their business to achieve in the first place.
I love that. That is such a common issue for entrepreneurs. So that's amazing that you're meeting them in that place and helping them to get that freedom again. That is so cool. Okay, tell me a little bit about your story of like how you got started in this business. How did you get started in entrepreneurship? And yeah.
Well, that's how long is a podcast really? Because that could be quite the story. We have or this is actually my fourth like legit business, if you will. I had the entrepreneurship bug from when I was literally 12 years old. I would go and
Love
um,
that.
service the houses in my neighborhood when people would go on vacation. I would like water their plants, bring in their mail, and I just caught that bug of providing value for someone in exchange for money. I thought that was just like it was crazy, right? That you could do that when you first stumble upon that. So
Yeah.
fast forward to um, out of when I got out of college, I went to college for business and I was really helping my dad run our family business. And I wanted to do something on my own, so I started this side project within that business that ended up becoming what was my first real business. We separated those two out. It was a t-shirt company, so we did screen printing, embroidery. We put ink on things, basically, is the oversimplified version. And that was my real first business. So when I got into that, what I found was, again, same thing. It was so cool to provide value to somebody and they would pay me for it. And you got to
Mhm.
collaborate and meet so many other people from the community. That was a local business. I turned that because it was so successful so quickly. I turned that into a franchise. And that's kind of where things started to go really wrong because that's where, and I will
Mm.
put this disclaimer out, I was not a believer at that point. I grew up Catholic. I understood who Jesus was. I understood God, but it was like a ritual more
Yeah.
than a practice, if you will. So I chased money, and that was my first
Mhm.
and biggest mistake. And I don't regret it because it led me here, but it was one of those things where if I had to go back and do something different, it would just be that one thing.
Mhm.
I wanted to help business operators become business owners and follow the path that I had achieved in my first business. But I approached a company who helped franchises develop and build and launch and they only talked about money and my eyes got big and I was like, "Oh, we're going to be making 7 figures a month and this is crazy. Like my life is going to be so different. I'm going to have Lamborghinis and don't you just want to punch me listening to this, don't you? I know I do too. So what go kind of opened my eyes was I they started marketing that franchise. We had 8 contracts out and we were on schedule to collect over $500,000 in revenue. And I called the whole thing off because I
Mhm.
saw how they were marketing the company, not just mine, but the other ones they represented to people. And they were lying. They were just, there was zero ethics involved. And it was just You'll make $1 million in your first year. You could just hire anybody to run it. You don't even have to learn the business. It runs itself. It's easy. Now, listen, you're in business. I'm in business. It's not easy. This is
No.
not, no business is easy,
Hmm.
especially not a franchise model when you're starting from nothing. So I just said, this is, I've had enough. I tossed away all of the money that I sunk into it. I didn't pursue them for any legal action or anything like that. I just said, listen, I'm walking away. I invested over $250,000 at that point. I
Wow.
sold my actual business in the middle of last year. And that's where I met my business partner. And I expressed to him that mission, that drive to help business owners achieve business ownership, not job ownership. So we
Mm.
put our heads together. He's got a history of helping literally the biggest companies in the world, Nike, Uber, Johnson and Johnson. And we designed a product that was affordable for small business owners and really, really efficient for helping them grow their companies, but also completely ethical so that it's not,
Mhm.
you don't fall for these scams on the internet where it's like, make your first six figures in 30 days. There's
Oh,
absolutely none
hate
of
that.
that. And
Yeah.
it's just it's been a wild ride, but it's led me here, so I'm thankful for it.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. I commend you for holding on to your integrity. I know that ultimately that's the Lord, but like that's hard to do. And especially when you had to walk away from something that you had put your heart into and that you had hope in. And yeah, that's that's hard, but I'm so grateful that you made that decision. It was obviously the right decision and it brought you here, which is so cool that you get to help other businesses to actually scale in a sustainable way um, without without sacrificing ethics and helping those business owners get their freedom back. That's so incredible. I love that. Okay, so all right, how really quick, how did you oh, maybe not really quick. Let me back that up. Take a minute and explain what has the Lord done in your heart as you have worked and as you've grown this business, especially this last business. How does your faith affect that and what has the Lord done in you?
Every single day. It's I shared you were on my podcast, so we'll include that link in the show notes, I'm sure, but
Yes.
it's how I ended that episode. And it's the first four words in the Bible. It's in the beginning God. So that for me is not just like in the beginning of a business or of a product. It's like in the beginning of an email you're about to write. I mean, you have to, as a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of filming a 31-day series of biblical business building principles because just one more thing we incorporate into building our clients' business and ours is it's got to be in line with the Bible because that is the ultimate truth. So the video I filmed today was Matthew 6:33.
Mm,
Seek first the kingdom of God, right? So in the
yeah.
beginning, God, seek first the kingdom of God. It's very clear. That's not a message that's just written once in the Bible. It's everything. You have to, for me, that's how I know I'm aligned in my purpose because it's the daily prayers. Give me eyes to see, give me the ears to hear, give me the courage to take action on my purpose. And it doesn't feel dissonant. Nothing feels dissonant to what we're doing. It's ethical, it's serving others, it's serving God, it's in line with the Bible, and it's easy. I struggle to say the word easy in business, but
Hmm.
there's no stress. Even
Yeah.
even as times get hard or things don't go your way, it's not my way. It's his way. So it's like I just sit back, I do my part, and I understand that the Lord will do his part, and wherever that takes us, it takes us. But that's it's everything is the short answer.
I could, you couldn't have said a more perfect answer. That is so cool. I love that. And that's the heartbeat of my whole company is helping Christians to feel that way. So it's so exciting to me to see you operating in that way because it's just like the Christian life applied to your business life. It's like, I love that you said there's no dissonance. That's perfect. Yeah, I love that so much. Wow. That's really cool. Okay, so because we know the Lord and business are not separate, or they don't need to be separate, let's dive into the business realm and let's talk about, what do you do? What do you help people do? Kind of on a more like granular level. Like, explain to us a little bit what your business does. And also, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs as they're doing their business?
Yeah, good question. So it's so my business partner who I mentioned, he's consulted with over a dozen Fortune 100 companies. I may have mentioned it, some of them, Nike, Uber, Johnson and Johnson, like companies you've heard of.
Mhm.
They're massive, right?
Yeah.
When he was inside those walls, it's a different environment of business. But what he realized was all business is the same. And there's these 10 fundamental disciplines that are always present, no matter if you are Nike or if you are solopreneur with an idea. There are fundamental principles. So I mentioned the word dissonance, which you
Hmm.
picked up on. We have a business architecture or a business operating system, and the acronym for it is HARMONIOUS. So
Hmm.
that's what the 10 fundamental disciplines are. And the goal is to run a harmonious business. So with them, I won't dive into all of them, but the moral of the story is when you understand what they are, and more importantly, not what they are, but you don't think about them as separate, it's how they link together and how you leverage those links to be as efficient as possible. So we're not working 60, 70, 80 hours a week to grow a business. We're doing as little as possible to get the biggest outcome. So when
Mm.
you're growing your business, we work in typically when clients come to us, we work in 90-day sprints and then on an ongoing consulting arrangement.
Okay.
In those 90 days, there's two common problems that I already kind of hinted at when people come to us. They either need to reduce the time spent in their business, or they need to increase their productivity so that they're not at the center of the decision making and the owner is not the bottleneck to the business. In either solution, you need to do three things in this exact order, and it'll totally change your life. And Rachel, I hinted at this before we started recording because we just wrapped it up for our quarterly sprint, but we work in quarterly sprints. If you've read the book, The 12-Week Year, very similar to that. If you haven't, just do this. Step one, understand your navigation. So that's the N in harmonious. Navigation for us, core values, mission, and vision. You need
Okay.
to very, very clearly identify those three things and don't stop until it's right. It might take you 3 weeks, and that is perfectly fine. It will serve as the building block for the rest of your business. I
Mm.
promise. One quick thing I'll say about navigation that we tell all of our clients, because it sounds so stupid when you say like mission, vision, core values, like you want to build a business off of that. If you get navigation right, it's very hard to get the rest of your business wrong. If you get navigation wrong, it is literally impossible for you to get the rest of your business right.
Mm.
That's how much importance we put on that one discipline. So from there,
Yeah.
you break down your vision into quarterly sprints. So hopefully your vision is somewhat metrics based. I've done a number of videos on this, so I won't get too granular here, but you want to make sure that you could break that down and pick 3 projects per quarter. So we said, all right, what's going to make the biggest difference for us over the next 12 weeks? What's going to move the needle based on where our business is and where we want it to go on that 5-year vision? We pick 3 projects, and then we pick 3 activities per project that will nearly guarantee that we hit the outcome we've set for each one. So that's based on the vision. So vision into 3 projects, into 3 critical activities per projects. We have 9 activities. Step
Hmm.
3, and the final step, put on your calendar and make sure it gets done. And it's
Mm.
better be the first thing on your calendar. So those 9 activities, whatever the frequency is, if they're once a week, if they're once a day, you do them first. Anything else that's on your calendar is irrelevant until you get those 9 things done. And as your team grows, as your company grows, you do that for each role. So if you have 5 employees, they each get 3 things. You get 3 things. It will blow your mind how quickly you grow your business from
Mm.
quarter 1, stacking that to quarter 2 to 3 to 4. You literally, that's why they call it the 12-week year. You get a year's worth of work done in 12 weeks, and it compounds at an exponential rate. It's absolutely absurd.
Wow. That's really cool. And I believe it because I think when you know exactly, when you have that clarity to know what you to work on, we spend so much time as business owners doing all sorts of throwing spaghetti at the wall, like all sorts of things we should not be focusing on. So I totally believe that that would just, yeah, help a business so much to get that clarity and have that exact strategy. That's really cool. Okay, so you've talked to me before this interview a little bit about traction. And can you explain a
You're gonna get me canceled.
yes, no, I'm kidding. I love the controversy though, because I think this is so interesting. I know traction is a really big book for a lot of people. Talk to me a little bit though about what are some of the pitfalls you see with traction and how is your model different?
Yeah, so I'm totally fine getting canceled because I we like to speak truth to people, and it's sometimes hard to hear, but what it comes from is disrupting where you're at. If anything that I say triggers you, it's not it's not something to say, "Oh, he's an idiot." You can say that all you want. I'm perfectly fine with that. I have a lot of people on the internet who say that to me every single day, and I'm okay with it. What you should say though is why. Why does this trigger me? Why am I offended by this? What am I holding on to that might need a little disruption to see it in a different light?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about traction, it's really that's the one I love to pick on the most because it's the most overused and just redundant model that doesn't make any sense to me. It's overkill. It's any business model that is a templated model that would argue that all businesses need to operate in the same way. It
Mm-hmm.
makes no sense. You can't print off 8 worksheets and say, here we go. I'm going to grow my business with 8 worksheets. Like that's absurd to me. So some of the things that we find in that model is it's not complete enough, especially in that navigation section. Like I said, I'll say this, they do touch on core values and vision. But I don't know how deep they get into core values. For us, that is literally the filter to hire and fire by. If you have a team of employees and someone breaks a core value, I don't care if it's your best friend or if it's your mother, you fire them on the spot because that is the core of your culture. So I can't speak to that specifically with them, um, but I've really never seen anybody that goes that hard and deep on core values. On the vision, though, this is where I really disagree with this model. Our vision, I said, is metrics based. We want to know, like, do you want to serve 20,000 clients in 5 years? Do you want to have an average Google rating of 4.9 stars? Those things are okay, but their vision and a number of other business models that I've seen have you get super specific. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
describe how many employees you're going to have, describe or list all the services you're going to sell to people, the revenue you're going to make, the profit you're going to make. And where I have a real problem with this, and I've seen it play out a number of different times, is with a psychological principle called loss aversion. When you own something in your mind, whether it's actually physically true, like these headphones, I own them, I have them.
Mm-hmm.
You say the word I have, or you write something in such detail that your mind believes you have it, it is very, very hard to let it go. It's actually it's significantly harder to even think of anything else that could be an option if you claim ownership to something. So what that does is over the course of 5 years, I think they even go out to a 10-year vision, which is way too far.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of those 5 years, if you have your mindset on $1 million in revenue, and today you're at $5 in revenue, you can get to $1 million in revenue in like 2 years, like really efficiently. You
Mm-hmm.
will slow yourself down because you put it at 5 years. So psychologically, you will talk yourself out of better decisions because you're stuck on that number in that timeline. So it gets really hard to pivot and change your business because you're stuck on what you think it should be. And with the 10-year mark, I mean, if you go back 10 years to 2014, first of all, there was no such thing as AI. Well, there was, if you want to get super granular, but the AI that we have today, that wasn't even on the radar. So
Yeah.
like you can't predict what's going to happen in 10
Yeah.
years. You can't forecast what your business is going to look like. That's a little snippet of why we firmly disagree with them, but the overall concept is just it's a copy and paste business model that does not have the success rates that we think are appropriate for helping people run their business.
Mm, that's so fascinating. And that makes so much sense. Everything you said about loss aversion too. And just how can you project that far into the future? Like I've been in business for just over 3 years, I think. If I had tried to project where I would be, like even my quarterly goals last year, like quarter 3 of last year, were to do all these things. And then like the Lord changed those plans. And I'm so glad he did because it was definitely for the better. And if I had had like this grip on it, like I have to be doing a conference, in 2024, which was one of my goals, like that was not the right choice for me for this stage of my business. I need to have a team before I do that. And so like just I don't know, it's like I can see what you're saying about how if you kind of lay things out too far in advance, things just change so much in between there. And you can get so stuck on it has to be this outcome. It needs to look this way or else I'm a failure. Instead of just allowing yourself to pivot as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things. That's the perfect point. Um I didn't factor in where God calls you in that equation because um that's not them and that's not up to them to be a Christian business. That's we're not going to throw rocks at that. That's their choice.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, look at me in the example that I just shared. Just like you said, like that, I was in a different industry, a completely different business model, and I had goals. Like, don't get me wrong, I always operate with something to chase, a vision to chase. If I were to be so set on that that I did not allow God to change my heart and first of all call me to believing in that
Mhm.
process, I don't even know where I'd be, but I'd be miserable chasing something that I didn't really want. And that to me is where burnout comes from. So
Yeah.
I we don't like getting stuck on something so firmly. That's why we evaluate every 90 days because things change and you cannot see that coming. No human being can see that coming. So it's
Mm.
not right.
Such a good point. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Okay. So now your podcast is called Harmonious at Lunch. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to touch on that because you were saying your model is built on that acronym harmonious.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about your podcast because we'll definitely link that in the podcast notes.
My podcast is about having a good time and entertaining people.
Okay.
So we are a firm believer in incorporating fun into your business. So we are technically what you would call us is fractional COOs.
Mhm.
That's got to be the most boring position outside of legal and accounting. It's like you have your boring accountants, your boring lawyers who we love so much because you keep the train on the tracks. Thank you. But and then you have the COOs, and it's like there couldn't be a more boring set of individuals. So we said, okay, how do you make business fun? Because too much, too often you hire consultants, they come in, it's boring, you do a lot of work, and
Mm,
they walk away, and you're like, all right, well maybe we're more efficient, but we have no soul left at this point. So we said, okay, there's two parts to our logo. Our logo is an upside down question mark. At face value, it looks just like that, but the very top of it, the green part, is actually a play button. So
mm,
it for us, if play is not happening in your business, if you don't incorporate having fun and you don't intentionally play, you're just doing business wrong. So when we decided to launch two podcasts, actually, Harmonious at Lunch is the one that you were on that I host. It was how do we make business advice fun? Because
mm.
people they want when they're seeking a podcast, they either want to be entertained or they want to learn something.
Yeah.
I don't think those should be separate. I really just believe in these short bite-sized episodes that we can have a party. And there's no better way to do business and life than to have fun and learn something at the same time. So, is it the right model? I have no idea. We are very highly ranked in New Zealand. I don't live anywhere near New Zealand, but the Kiwis love us, and hopefully soon the Americans will love us too.
That's amazing. I love that. And I really appreciate what you said about play being such an important piece. That is such an important actually doctrine. The doctrine of play is in scripture, which is super interesting and one that I really want to delve into more in the future. But yeah, I think being able to, I think it's part of rest. Like being able to play is such an important part of our spiritual life, being able to relax enough to know God smiles on me. I don't have to be stressed. I can just have fun. Like that's part of God's character is that he has a like a humorous side, which is really interesting to see. I don't think we think that way about God enough to know that like
I'll tell you what, if you you analyze the way your prayers are answered and you don't see the humor side, you're in big trouble. That's I'll leave it at that. But yeah.
yes, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things I've been actually working on for about 2 years is like developing this doctrine of play, this theology of play.
I'm gonna pick your brain on that because that's really cool. I had no idea. So I'm gonna nerd out on this with you.
Perfect. Perfect. That'll be fun. Yeah, someday I'll do a podcast on it. I've been wanting to for a while, but it just doesn't feel quite developed enough to release yet. But okay, that's really cool. Okay, so I love the play aspect. And then what would you say would be like your best piece of business advice to, a lot of my people in my audience are newer at business, or maybe they've been doing business for, around 5 years. What would you say to someone who is kind of in that place of like just getting started, just getting their feet under them? And how could they start to apply some of the things that you guys teach?
Outside of what we teach, I think, because everybody's different, everybody has their own flavor. So when we start to work with people, or even if people inquire about working with us, it's got to be a right personality fit. And we're not for everybody, and we get that, and that's totally okay. We don't want to force you into something because if you're not playing, you're not doing the right work. So if
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to have as much fun as we have, that's totally fine. Some people don't. The biggest thing I learned when I started my last business was for the first 2 years, I really, really struggled. It was successful on paper, but it was a struggle. Like it grew quickly, but it sucked the life out of me. I was working
Mm-hmm.
way too much. I told you that was one of the core problems that most business owners have. I was working those 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and I was answering all the problems on my own. I was listening to podcasts, I was reading books, I was absorbing all of the information I possibly could, and it still wasn't enough.
Mm,
You may think I'm an idiot, and the people on the internet think I'm an idiot, and that's fine, but really I'm not. Like we we grew that company very quickly, and we did a lot of things right, and it still wasn't working. And that's why I knew something was just totally off. So what I did was in year 2.5 to 3, I found a mentor, and I have never since been without at least one mentor, most times three, three or more. So that would be my biggest advice to anybody, no matter where you are in your journey of business. Find a mentor who has achieved what you want to achieve and then some. So it's going to
mhm,
be an easy walk in the park for them to get you there, and pay them as much as you can possibly afford. Because a good mentor, someone who's not lying to you about $1 million in 30 days, like a good quality mentor, they will accelerate your timeline and save you decades. And usually the amount you invest with them directly correlates to your result. So
mhm.
that I've found that over and over and over. Don't get me wrong, I've made some terrible mentor decisions, but in the very beginning, I made some really good ones. And I went from working the 80 hours a week to 6, like
Wow.
very quickly. And it
Mm,
saved me a lifetime of effort.
wow. That's an amazing testimony, especially a lot of my audience is moms. And so we don't have those 80 hours a week to invest in our businesses. And it's just really inspiring to hear that you can run a business on less hours. And in fact, it works better that way.
Well, I'll tell you what, the process we take our clients through is we work, I told you we work in those 90-day sprints to start with people. We've partnered with another really good friend of ours. They specialize on optimizing human beings. We optimize the business structure. So we usually work together on this stuff. By the end of the 90 days, we want to get the business owner to a 2-week vacation a month. Now, they don't
Wow.
have to take a vacation necessarily, but in those 2 weeks, they do not have to be operating their business. They don't have to be involved in their business. They get to do the focus work. So when you start to think of it that way, that's like scary to think about, like no contact with my business for 50% of the time, and it still
Mm,
grows. When you think about business in terms of how much can I step away from it and still have
yeah.
it do what it's supposed to do, completely shifts your mindset. But that to me is really that's that balance of work versus rest. It's not about working 80 hours a week and having more money. It's
Mhm.
build something sustainable so it runs without you.
Mm. That's brilliant. What you said about that mindset shift of how much can I step away from my business? Because what that does is it clarifies what's actually moving the needle for you and what's actually essential, right? Essentialism. That's brilliant. Super cool. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Most people honestly the initial reaction is fear, which is I think kind of funny because I'm like you don't want 2 weeks off a month? How is that a bad thing? But we get so conditioned, whether you're a mom and you're doing this 2 hours a day or you're me from 5 years ago doing this 80 hours a week, we get conditioned that work equals result. But
Hmm.
that's not the equation. It's correct work equals result. So let's do the smallest amount of correct work as humanly possible to get the biggest outcome, and then keep layering on those small amounts of work, but give them to people who can help us and it's not gonna destroy our business or our lifestyle at the same time.
Mm, love that. That is so cool. I love that you're helping people to do this. That's really amazing. And just think of like the life altering impacts that that would have on someone's business to be able to step away, to be able to spend 2 weeks away from your business. Um, yeah. And we really are conditioned to think like more work equals more results. And that is so not true. So not true. Yeah,
No.
and I know a lot of moms know this because they start having kids and they work less hours and they get 2 or 3 times or more done in their businesses than they ever did before. I know that was
I,
my experience.
it's so true, and I haven't fully cracked that code yet because I don't know, maybe that's a male versus female thing, but I look at my wife, perfect example. She just launched a business, a membership for homeschool parents and more about connecting with your kids using fun learning, incorporating fun into the
Oh, that's so cool.
um and she doesn't do anything. And she has no time throughout the day. And she's an absolute saint. And I love her. I love everything about her. And I'm like, how do you get so much done in like 10 minutes? 10 minutes with a child screaming in your ear. And it is absolutely amazing what moms can get done in a short period of time. I don't have that focus. Like I do need quiet, focused time to get things done. She doesn't, and most moms that I know don't. So kudos to you out there.
That's so funny. That ever since that happened to me, I've been like, I need to figure out like what this is. I don't feel like I've fully cracked the code on why does it work that way. And I don't know if that's just like something the Lord gives moms, or if there is something that could kind of be like cracked about that code and that a lot of people could be using. It's one of my thought experiments that hasn't.
Yeah, you figure it out and let me know because I do not have that answer.
That's so funny. Okay. That's amazing though. Can you shout out your wife's business? Is it launched? Where can people find it? Or can we put that in the show notes?
We'll put it in the show notes. Yeah,
Okay.
her name is Michelle Gano. If you go to michellegano.com, we'll include that in the show notes. You'll be able to learn more about her business.
Awesome. Awesome. I know a lot of my listeners would be interested in that. So
That's
cool.
awesome.
Okay. Well, um, what does an average day look like for you? I love hearing this from different entrepreneurs because everybody's lives look different, but it's so interesting to get a peek behind the curtain and see like what does a daily, weekly rhythm look like for you?
I leverage weekly rhythms
Mhm.
because for me, when we schedule out our activities, we don't need to do all of the things, that 9 box of activities every single day. We have them more spread out over the week. So for me, and before I say this, if you're listening, do not copy this. You have to leverage your personality, your energy levels, your work schedule. This is not going to work for everybody. This is what just I happen to know myself and how I work best over decades of doing this. So Mondays are podcast day. I record a lot of episodes throughout the week because I have my show that you mentioned is a daily show. So I will take
Mhm.
Monday, download all the episodes, upload them to all the podcast platforms and YouTube, get all the descriptions right, make sure I get everybody's show notes right. I'll edit down all of the clips from the show. We produce on average 50 pieces of content per day for our business. A lot of that comes from our podcast, but that all happens on Monday. So that's
Wow.
like Monday is like content day for me. I usually don't meet with clients. I don't meet with my business partner even. We kind of just go our separate ways on Monday. Tuesday, I do bulk recording. So I'll do a lot of guest appearances on other podcasts. If I'm not in a recording season of my own. Otherwise, like next Tuesday, for example, I have 12 recordings in a row.
Wow.
So it's a crazy day, but that's I know how to show up with that energy
Yeah.
on that day, and I know what's required of me and nothing else. So that's something that I've learned about myself is I'm not super good at task switching, and I don't think really anybody is, but going
Yeah.
from email to phone call to client call to shooting social media videos, a lot of switching time in your brain, and it exhausts you quicker. So I know I'm showing up and I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing 12 of them, and I'll start and finish the day with the same energy. Wednesdays is our inner circle day. So we have a mastermind that's our membership, our group coaching. We get all that done. My business partner and I have a podcast. We do that on Wednesday morning. We meet for the week on Wednesdays, and Wednesday afternoon is usually more of like client focused stuff. Thursday, Friday, I like to keep pretty open. So I do overflow podcasts on Thursdays. I'll do a lot of guest appearances on Fridays. And it's just clean up from the week plus actual serving of our clients. Um, so really I batch everything into the first 3 days of the week, and then I know I have the spillover into the rest of the week.
Okay. Wow. That's really cool. And I love that you've utilized the weekly rhythms and you just have those days where you're like, I know I have to be on this day, and other days are more restful. That's really cool. And yeah, that's task switching is killer. So that's amazing. I love it. Okay. Well, before we end, I want to hear how can people work with you? If they're like me, they're going, I need to sign up like ASAP for this. So, how do people get in touch with you? How can they start to work with you? And what does that process look like?
There's so many ways to work with us for free, to get a flavor of what we're doing. We believe, running a biblically based business, that is very hard to say. I gotta get better with that. But running a business that is based in scripture, that is rooted in our relationship with God, it is so important for us to give as much value as we possibly can before we ever take a dime from you. The world has to go around. I have a mortgage, I have food to put on the table. So at some point, yeah, we are going to charge you for things, and we're going to get you a big result on the back end. The first thing that you should do before you go listen to our podcast, listen to the episode with Rachel, though. Definitely do that first because it was brilliant. And Rachel, you're awesome. Um,
Thanks.
so do that. And then the next thing you should do is go to our website, whatif.com. That'll be in the show notes too. And take our instant clarity assessment. So, what this is designed to do is, again, all business is the same. How you run your business and how you leverage the links is going to be different. So that'll expose in 8 minutes where the holes in your business are.
Mm,
And we'll use that to plan your next 90-day sprint. So we actually give that to you too. Take the assessment on the last page. You'll have the option to schedule a call. That comes right to my calendar when you use that link that Rachel's going to put in the show notes. So you and me will have an option or have the ability to interact. It's a 45-minute call. I'll give you the 90-day plan. It's going to be completely yours. If you take action on it, you'll get such a good result that you'll want to come back and pay me. And not only want to, you will have the resources to do that, guaranteed. Because if you don't, then we did something wrong. And we've just never found a situation where that assessment has been wrong. So
mm.
I really urge you to do that, because it's the easiest thing you could do in 10 minutes to get a very quick and clear result of exactly where you need to take your business over the next quarter.
Very cool. Awesome. Awesome. Great next steps. Cool. Yeah, I definitely encourage you guys. Everything Brandon has said in this interview has been gold. It's been fire. So make sure you go take that assessment, book that 45-minute call with him, and get your next steps and start taking action, because everything he said in this episode has been how to do less in your business, how to maximize your results, how to make your business work for you instead of you working for your business. And isn't that what we should be doing as Christians? Aren't we supposed to be stewarding our time, stewarding our businesses? We don't want to create a monster that we then have to feed and we're a slave to. That's not stewardship. So make sure you go take action on that. Don't like listen and go, yeah, that's a great idea, and then don't do it. So this is my challenge to you. Go actually do that. Awesome. Okay, well, I have just a few ending questions, rapid fire. So these are like 1 to 2 sentence answers, Brandon. If you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
It would have to be the 100 questions that will transform your business in 90 days. That's the
Mm,
process we go through with all of our clients. I wish everybody had the power to know these questions.
wow. Okay. Very cool. Super intriguing. I wish I could read that book. Okay. What's your favorite podcast?
I mean, you're putting me in a real tough spot here. Is it this one? Is it my own? I
Okay. Besides our two, like separate from those. Yes.
That's our two. Uh, Full disclosure, I don't listen to podcasts anymore because of the overwhelm of information. I get too
Yeah.
excited.
Sure.
Um, I'm gonna plug my own. Go listen to Harmonious at lunch. Like I said, the Kiwis love us. We're having a good time. Be more like New Zealand and have fun while you do business.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Okay. And then what's one book you would recommend every entrepreneur read?
Hands down, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, or really anything by Mike Michalowicz. I think he thinks in this very same way of less is more, think outside the box,
Yeah.
and his principles to running a business are rock solid.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that book has been transforming for my business too. That's amazing. Okay, where can people connect with you and find your services? Oh, we did that one already. I'll just cut that out. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Voca podcast, Brandon. This was amazing. Such a fire episode. Thank you for sharing all of just the wisdom that you have from all of your work with so many clients, and also the I can tell that you have really walked with the Lord and that you are practicing what you preach, and that this is wisdom that has come the hard way. Like you have walked the path and done the hard work, the inner work of actually um, walking in your integrity, walking with the Lord, doing business and serving your clients. And that has hard won wisdom with it. And so thank you for sharing that with my audience. Thank you for sharing that with these listeners. I know that they are going to be really encouraged by it, and they are going to go take that 45-minute or that assessment and get that 45-minute call with you. So thanks so much for being on the podcast. This was awesome.
You better go take it, but more importantly, I'm flattered, really. Don't forget where wisdom comes from. And it's from, I told you, if you don't think God has a sense of humor, I did not go through all of that to have a cool story to tell. That's where wisdom comes from, and it comes from above.
Amen. Awesome. Perfect note to end on. Thank you, Brandon. This was great.
Thank you.